Okay, okay, please.
Okay, Bhante, when Bhante say about when we pass, the stream of consciousness will be carried forward to the next life.
Yeah.
So this consciousness, is it the same as the fifth khandhas, the vijnana?
I would say it's part of the fifth khandha, yeah.
But I guess it is not exactly identical because
It would be part of the fifth khandha is the khandha of consciousness. And so the way the fifth khandha is analyzed, there are the 6 types of consciousness: eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose, tongue, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. So the consciousness that continues on is not any of the 5 types of sense consciousness, but it is an aspect of the mano-vijnana, the mind consciousness, but it's not the active mind consciousness, because it's not sort of thinking thoughts or formulating ideas, but it's just a little bit like when we go into a deep dreamless sleep, there's still some kind of flow of consciousness going on, though it's not a fully aware consciousness, but it's a very, very subtle kind of consciousness that continues below the threshold of awareness. And that would be the kind of consciousness that flows on from one life to the next.
Thank you, Bhante. So Bhante, in the case of sudden death, for example, there's bomb somewhere and the body is explode. How would that person have enough time to implement the practice?
If the person has not done any previous practice of either recollection of death or any kind of meditation, then they just be overtaken by complete panic. This is something completely unexpected, and the mind has no equipment to deal with a crisis like that. But if we've gone through the meditation on death and we've reflected on the ideas that death can take place at any time, and we never know when death is going to strike, and then we reflect that I could be out, in the street, and somebody comes out, one of these angry guys with a rifle, and starts shooting, or somebody sets off a bomb. Even though we'll still be maybe shocked, but suddenly we could bring up that recollection, like, this is what I've been rehearsing for. Now I'm on the stage, to use the simile I used in the afternoon. The curtain is open, and now the audience is out there waiting for me to recite my lines.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Bhante.
that's why it's important to do this practice, so we have the equipment. If we suddenly are confronted with death, then we're able to deal with it.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, next will be Samangi Munasinghe.
Yes, Bhante, thank you. Thank you for your teaching. As I was listening this afternoon to your explanation, so the fact that our body, even we lose even our own body, those things, all of those things we can see other people, it happening to other people, we can understand why it would happen to us. However, the fact that the consciousness goes into the other realm or dimension or whatever the word is, that is taken on faith or its belief. So even if we are practicing at the time for the time of death, that we would be ready, the consciousness aspect is still not really a practice, it's a belief. So how do we know we'll be ready for that? Like I can think, okay, if I think about death, I'll be ready. It won't be a surprise.
Yeah.
But what we take on based on just a belief. Well, personally, I'm not an arhat, so it's a belief for me. How do we know that we are going to be ready for that part is not going to scare us? How do we prepare for that which we take on belief?
Yeah,
On faith?
that we take on faith that consciousness is going to continue on. But even let's say if one doesn't accept the idea of consciousness continuing, that you just hold the belief that when death comes, it's the complete end of life. But still, I think of course, it's the end of life, that when death comes, it's the complete final end of consciousness, no continuation of consciousness. But still, I think I would assume one wants to be able to die with a kind of mindfulness and clear comprehension of one's passing, and
Exactly.
and to
Exactly.
die in a peaceful state rather than in a state of panic and distress. And even without a belief in rebirth or continuation of consciousness, the idea of or this practice of recollection of death is still beneficial.
So is it habituation that will maybe help us at that point
Yeah,
in time?
one becomes habituated to the practice so that you're able, it's like maybe putting in your savings when you get your salary, instead of spending everything every week, you put a portion in the bank and then you have that stored up in the bank. So if there's an emergency, then you can draw upon your savings to deal with the emergency. And so this practice, it's a way of like storing up spiritual funds within the bank of the mind so that when you meet this existential emergency, then you can draw out the funds of your previous practice. Okay, I
Okay,
think we have to take
thank
some
you.
more questions. There's two more questions, and that will be it, because then we want to do some more practice. So the next one is Elizabeth.
Hi, Bhante. Thank you for your teaching. I think over the years, your teaching helped provide structures for me. And so it's been very helpful. And I sort of had three questions. I hope it's okay, but
Well,
let's just
I think
start.
you have to choose the one that you consider most important, unless they're simple questions that
Okay.
could be answered.
Well, I will choose the important one then.
Okay.
It's not quite related to today's topic, if it's okay. Maybe it's more of we've been studying, we finished studying your book in the Buddhist words.
Yeah.
And also it's the Majjhima Nikaya.
Yeah.
And I find both of them, your recording from Majjhima Nikaya, the recording was done from 2003 to 2000, I think 7, right, 4 years. And while the book was published in 2005. So how should we approach these two, or is that one is more I guess they're all correct, but the different resources and references. I mean, should we compare the two, or there was some variation between the two
What
in
one is the Majjhima Nikaya?
the recordings, all your
Recording.
recording? Right, you do the lectures, right?
Yeah.
You had the syllabus. You talked about the Majjhima Nikaya.
Yeah.
In 4 years versus the book. I look at them, they're kind of published at the same time.
No,
Well,
the book was
not the
actually,
same time. Which one is first?
the translation of the Majjhima Nikaya was published in 1995. Yeah.
But
So
when you teach them from 2003 to
yeah,
2007.
2003 to about 2007. Yeah, to 2008. Yeah, the book was published in 1995.
Oh, okay.
Those subsequent editions were issued. So maybe if you have a later edition, it says
I see.
published 2005, but it was actually originally published 1995. And there were a few just some changes that were made that I made, some
I see.
corrections in later
So,
editions.
okay, so if we were to follow, is that probably the recordings will be more current or you added more materials?
Well, the recording, I wasn't just reading from the book, I was giving explanations.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of things in the explanations that are
Right.
not in the book. Yeah.
Okay, that's more addition.
Yeah.
Okay, I see. All right.
Okay.
Um,
I think, yeah, we have to move on because there's one more person with questions. So, okay. So this will be Wiley.
Thank you, Bhante. This is actually related to
Oh,
Chris's.
I see Max passed just
Yes, he did. Just 2
2 days
days ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Oh,
oh, my.
yeah.
Yeah. But he passed very peacefully and he was in my arms, so it worked out
Oh,
very
good.
well.
That's good. Yeah.
This is related to Chris's earlier question. I've met some people that translate upadana as habitual tendency as opposed to clinging. How do you feel about that translation?
No, I just don't agree with it.
Okay, that's basically the simple question.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate just a little
Okay.
bit?
So upadana,
Hmm.
habitual tend. I think there's a different word,
Hmm.
maybe. Upadana, okay, is based on, the word dana, which means giving, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so you take dana and you have the prefix a in front of it, adana, which turns it in the opposite direction. So adana is taking, and then it
Hmm.
has the other prefix upa. So it's upa plus a plus dana. So
Hmm.
upadana is literally it's taking up towards oneself. So one could translate it clinging, attachment, grasping, holding. Those renderings would work.
Hmm.
But I think maybe the word that would be rendered habitual tendency, it's a word used in late Pali and Sanskrit literature, vasana. If any Sinhalese person here, maybe you're familiar, don't the monks use the word? I hear it in sermons, vasanava, vasanava,
Asana means luck.
luck.
Yes.
Oh, then it's taken on a different meaning.
Yeah.
But the original
Yeah.
sense of vasana are sort of the impressions that are placed on the mind, which form like which become the dispositions into the next life and future lives. Yeah, that is the word. Okay, I think we want to settle
Thank
in
you.
to get a period. We'll transfer merit from Max, very faithful dog
Thank you.
coming from what was the monastery, the Tibetan monastery?
Draping.
Drepung Monastery. Okay, so we'll do now, we start off with the review of let me get the sharing of the screen. So we'll go through the stages of the mindfulness of death. First, take your preferred sitting position and just settle into the mindfulness of the body. And you could follow the breath, a couple of minutes of mindful breathing just to let the mind settle down. Okay, we're now going to be doing the mindfulness of death. And we start off with this statement from the Buddha that the meditation on death, actually he uses, I think, the perception of death, when developed and cultivated, is of great fruit and great benefit. It culminates in the deathless, and it has the deathless as its consummation, as its final goal. Okay, so I'll mention each of the main themes and the sub themes, and then you use the sub themes in whatever way you find helpful and effective in generating what we call this samvega, the sense of urgency. Okay, so we begin with the first main theme, that death is absolutely certain. That means my death is absolutely certain. Your death, for each one of you, your death is absolutely certain, that I must die. I can't escape death. My final destiny is in this life is death. And I can know this because every generation in the past, everyone in the past generations has died. So I can't be an exception from the standpoint of future generations. I will have died. And then the second is that death comes along with birth, and death is always following me, just like my shadow, waiting for the opportunity to strike. And the third sub-theme is that every moment, every second, we're moving closer to death. I'm moving closer to death. Okay, turn these over in the mind, reflecting on them, but letting the ideas sink into the mind, using whatever sub-themes you find effective. Okay, now we move to the second main theme. The arrival of death is utterly uncertain, absolutely unpredictable, something of which we have no foreknowledge. That is, the arrival of my death is unpredictable, and it's uncertain with regard to time. I don't know in advance when death will arrive. It's unpredictable with regard to place. I don't know where I will be when death comes for me. And it's unpredictable, uncertain in regard to the cause. I have no foreknowledge of what will be the cause of my death. Okay, so we have these three sub-themes. Now you turn this idea over in your mind. The arrival of death is absolutely uncertain. Using these sub-themes in whatever way you find most moving, most effective. Okay, then we move now to the third main theme. When death comes, we have to abandon or leave behind everything. We have to leave behind all of our wealth, and possessions, including positions, status, titles, and so on. We have to leave behind. The second is we have to leave behind all of our dear ones, our loved ones. And then third, we have to leave behind our own bodies and also the sense of personal identity based upon the body. So you could take these themes in whatever way, turn them over to impress upon your mind the idea of leaving everything behind. Okay, then we bring in next the fourth theme, that when we die, the body drops away, and the only thing that continues on is the stream of consciousness moving from this body to some other embodiment. And what it brings along with it are the karmic formations, the impressions of our good and bad deeds, and our habitual tendencies, the dispositions, the vasanas. Okay, now we're going to bring everything together. Now, this is where we generate the perception of death. We use an imaginary scene that will take the gentle form, that you're lying on your deathbed in your home, and you're surrounded maybe by your beloved family members who are looking after you, and you're sliding to the death process, sliding into the death process, and now death is taking place. You're moving from life to death, and you just imagine that scene, and you use it as a way to, might be a bit of a struggle, to let go of everything. Let go especially of the body. Well, you have to let go of all of your loved ones. The attachments will come up, the sorrow, but you have to let go of it, let go of them, and let go of this body. Okay, do that now on your own for a few minutes. You just keep on letting go, letting go. And if you're a faith type, then you can bring up some kind of object that inspires faith, maybe an image of the Buddha, or image of the community, of the Sangha. And if you're the wisdom type, you could use to let go, you could use the themes of impermanence or non-self, anatta, that there's no self that is dying, just the process coming to a temporary end. Okay, and then we're going to yoke the perception of death to the idea of the deathless nibbana. So again, this body is subject to death. Nibbana is the amata dhatu, the deathless element, the sphere, the domain in which there's no more death. This body is disintegrating, falling apart, breaking up. Nibbana is undisintegrating. This body is unstable, unreliable. Nibbana is the stable, the everlasting, always reliable. The body is subject to suffering. Nibbana is the supreme bliss. This bodily life is subject to all sorts of dangers, calamities, disasters. Nibbana is the state of supreme security from all harm and danger. Nibbana is the state of purity and freedom. This embodied life is the realm of birth and death, the near shore. Nibbana is the far shore beyond birth and death. It is the island in the storm of conditioned existence. It's the shelter, the place of safety, the final refuge, realized and extolled by the Buddha and all the other enlightened ones. So with this, we move from the perception of death to the recollection of nibbana as the state of peace, the deathless. Okay, now you can drop all mental formulations, come back to the body, mindfulness of the body in the sitting position. Take a few mindful breaths in and out, in and out. And then you can mindfully open your eyes and end the session the usual way by rubbing the palms to make them warm. Then palms over the face. And then down the back of the neck, shoulder blades. Then you can come down to the back, lower back, the buttocks, the knees, and then the feet and the toes. Okay, so now we're going to end the session, the day's session, with the sharing, the final sharing of the merits. Okay, so I'm going to recite the verses for sharing the merits with the devas and the nagas, and then we'll do the verse for sharing loving kindness. Okay, so I recite in Pali. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantam manumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantam manumoditva chirang rakantu desanam. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang. Okay, and then we do the verse for sharing loving kindness and compassion. And if you think of any friends or relatives who are going through personal trouble, you could share the merits of your practice with them. And we could also share them with Wiley's dog named Max, who passed away just 2 days ago. He spent about a month here a couple of years ago. So I know him quite well. Okay. Okay, so we'll recite. Yeah, somebody asked when the recording will be available. Yeah, I'll send it to Jason. There's Jason, the man here who's in charge of the tech, and it will go into the recording. You go to YouTube, then you go to the YouTube channel. It's called Baus, B-A-U-S, Zhuangyan Monastery, B-A-U-S, Zhuangyan Monastery. Then you'll get to the YouTube channel for the Zhuangyan Monastery. And then there are a number of playlists, or you see one of the headings is playlist, and you click on that. And one of them, the most recent one, will be called Perceptions That Lead to the Deathless 2024. Already the one from last week is now in that folder. And I'll send today's recording, I'll send to Jason tomorrow, and he could put it in tomorrow or Monday. So in a few days, it should be ready, after a few days. Okay, so let us then share the merits with the verse for extending loving kindness. Dukkha patachani dukkha, bhaya patachani bhaya, soka patachani soka, hantu sabbe pipanino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. And then we end with 3 bows. You do 3 bows.
Sadhu,
1.
Thank you, Bhante.
sadhu,
3.
sadhu.
Thank you.
And a bow to Bhante Bodhi.
Okay.
Bow.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Okay,
Bhante.
so
That
thank
was
you.
fantastic.
Okay, so thank you
Thank
all for
you,
joining.
Bhante.
Nice to see
Have
you
a good night.
again.
Teruvan
Okay.
Saranai.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
Bhante.
Budaya.
Okay, take care.
Namo
Okay, good
Budaya.
night.
Teruvan Saranai, Bhante. Be safe, Bhante. We all
Okay,
love
good
you,
night.
Bhante.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Bhante.
Good night, Bhante.
Okay, good night. Okay,
Good night.
okay.
Bhante.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, take care, Bhante.
Thank you.